and I have read State of Fear, and I found it very educational, very knowledgeable, and very entertaining. Thank you, Dr. Crichton.
Oh, all right. Senator Clinton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to certainly support Senator Jeffords' efforts to come up with legislation. I look forward to the hearings that you'll be holding next week. I have to say, Mr. Chairman, I think that the topic of this hearing is a very important one. Unfortunately, I think the hearing is organized in a way that will muddy the issues around sound science rather than helping us clarify them. First, with all respect to the extraordinary entertainment value and success of Dr. Crichton's works, his views on climate change are at odds with the vast majority of climate scientists. More importantly, his critique of climate change science appears in a work of fiction. It's a work of fiction even if it has footnotes, Mr. Chairman. His views have not been peer-reviewed. They do not appear in any scientific journal. I won't go into an assessment of Mr. Crichton's critique point by point because we don't have time. However, I do want to submit for the record a document prepared by the Union of Concerned Scientists that rebuts Mr. Crichton's primary arguments. In addition, I want to submit a document prepared by James Hansen, director of the Columbia University Earth Institute and Goddard Institute for Space Studies. In this document, Mr. Hansen details the distortions of his climate change predictions made by Mr. Crichton in his best-selling novel. Rather than focusing on Mr. Crichton's testimony, however, I would like to focus on several broader points about environmental policy making and the record of this administration, because I think this administration has taken the politicization of science to new levels. And that's not just my opinion. It's the opinion of hundreds of prominent scientists, 49 Nobel laureates, 63 National Medal of Science recipients, 154 members of the National Academies, and thousands of other scientists who have signed a statement criticizing the administration's misuse and politicization of science. I want to read just a brief excerpt from that statement. When scientific knowledge has been found to be in conflict with its political goals, the administration has often manipulated the process through which science enters into its decisions. This has been done by placing people who are professionally unqualified or who have clear conflicts of interest in official posts and on scientific advisory committees, by disbanding existing advisory committees, by censoring and suppressing reports by the government's own scientists, and by simply not seeking independent scientific advice. Other administrations have, on occasion, engaged in such practices, but not so systematically nor on so wide a front. Furthermore, in advocating policies that are not scientifically sound, the administration has sometimes misrepresented scientific knowledge and misled the public about the implications of its policies. For example, in support of the President's decision to avoid regulating emissions that cause climate change, the administration has consistently misrepresented the findings of the National Academy of Sciences, government scientists, and the expert community at large. Thus, in June 2003, the White House demanded extensive changes in the treatment of climate change in a major report by the Environmental Protection Agency. To avoid issuing a scientifically indefensible report, EPA officials eviscerated the discussion of climate change and its consequences, end quote. And Mr. Chairman, I ask that the full statement be included in the record.
Without objection.
Now, unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, the administration has not only misused scientific data, they've also underfunded basic science. Funding for scientific research has flatlined over the past few years. And this year, the administration's proposed budget actually calls for a decrease in real dollars for federally funded research. Most of the R&D budget increases that did occur in the President's budget were for new defense weapons systems, not for basic research in electronics, nanotechnology, computing, energy, physics, and all of the other sciences. I believe the U.S. is in real danger of losing its lead in science and advanced technology. Federal R&D plays a critical role in the education and training of future scientists and engineers, technological innovation, advancing health, increasing economic growth, and competitiveness. Now, Mr. Chairman, I'm not unfortunately going to be able to stay for the entire panel, but I want to just make a few additional brief comments.
Senator Clinton, I'm very, very sorry. We're all adhering to the time.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just get 1 minute. I just want to make a comment about a few of the witnesses.
Would you like to yield her one of your minutes?
I wouldn't ask that. But I think that actually I may say something you agree with, Mr. Chairman.
Ask unanimous consent that the senator from New York have an additional 60 seconds.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. I want to thank the panelists, although I think that the point of the hearing is misleading. I think that some of the testimony from the panelists is very important. I want to thank Dr. Roberts for making it clear that there are questions that need to be raised about DDT. I think that is an essential issue that we need to look at. We can't necessarily turn the clock back, but I think the threat of malaria is real. I also want to thank Mr. Sandalo, and I agree with you about the National Academy of Sciences request that you put in your testimony. And finally, I want to thank Ambassador Benedict. Your testimony about what can happen if people act in good faith is absolutely inspiring. The Montreal Protocol did risk imposing substantial short-run economic dislocations, even though the evidence was incomplete. But as your testimony demonstrates, and as you conclude in your testimony, politics is the art of taking good decisions on insufficient evidence based on the best possible science. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Clinton.